is a victory for democracy. It's a testament to what people can do when they come together for the greater good. This is also one of those occasions where the Supreme Creator reminds us once again that power does not reside in any one person. It is His will to give power to whoever He wants and take power from whoever He wants. Before I proceed, let us pause to honor the memory of colleagues with whom we started this journey, but who sadly are not here with us today. We lost the late Senator Ali Wakil, Bauchi South, Isiaka Adetunji Adeleke Osun West, and Buka Mustafa Kassian North in the line of duty in the Senate. I ask that we observe a minute silence for the continuing repose of their souls. May we all stand up and just for the final time. May the Almighty grant them eternal rest. Distinguished colleagues, let me thank each. I am indeed humbled because none of your achievements will have been possible. None of our achievement would have been possible without the support and cooperation of the entire members of this chamber. I want to thank particularly those who stood with us day in, day out during the trials, who were physically present there, and also thank those who were not there, but were there in mind to support. The invasion of the National Assembly by armed security operators in August 2011 will leave in infamy. This way down the line, however, I realized that the day of that invasion was the saddest, but in many ways it was also a good day for asserting the independence of the legislature and the triumph of democracy. It also turned out to be a showcase of the special relationship between this chamber and the House, as honorable members stood in unison with their Senate colleagues in defiance of the invaders. I thank the House of Representatives for this remarkable unity of the two chambers. For it was only in unity that we could withstand the storm. The pieces of legislation we passed in the crucial arenas affecting the daily lives of citizens on the economy, education, security, anti-corruption, and health will remain a benchmark. Working together, we clocked many firsts in this 8th Senate. And we should rightly be proud of this, especially as the imperishable legacies we're leaving for the people. Our many firsts include the National Assembly joint public hearing on the budget, which we started in 2016 appropriation bill, the engagement of the private sector and other stakeholders in crafting economic legislative agenda was a watershed. For the first time, there were meetings and interaction with members of the public, which were not previously the norm. On such interaction was the Public Senate, which gave youths the opportunity to spend a day with me as President of the Senate and see what we do. And I have pleasant memories of my reading to the audience of small children inside my office in the true spirit of Children's Day. The kids themselves were the dignitaries. It was during this Senate that we patented the concept of round table. This was groundbreaking. We left the center of power in Abuja to tackle pressing social issues at every heart of the communities most affected. Notably among these were the Senate Roundtable on Drug Use, which we held in Kano in December 2017, and the one on migration and human trafficking we held in Benin City in February 2018. At both events, with not only dialogue for solutions with relevant government agencies, international partners, community leaders, we heard from the victims themselves. In Kano, we heard the harrowing story of Zainab, a recovering drug addict. In Benin, we listened to the account of a young woman who was rebuilding her life after being trafficked to Russia for sex trade. And we heard from Victory, who had been sold into slavery in Libya. We let these people know that their voices count. Indeed, the voice of every Nigerian count, and the 8th Senate lent its ear to them. We were alive to our responsibility to those whom we serve, and we engage with them on their terms. It should be a matter of pride to all 109 senators and to our offspring that in this chamber we push humanity first. I will always be proud of the humaneness of the 8th Senate. Ours has been a legislator with a human face, personal touch, moved by the milk of human kindness. Whenever the situation demanded, we left the imposing edifice of the National Assembly to reach out to the person on the street. We show that Parliament belongs to the people, and as those, there should be no barrier between lawmakers and those they represent. One of our major acts upon inauguration was a Senate visit in August 2015 to Maiduguri, Borno State, the first ever National Assembly delegation of the leadership to see firsthand the living conditions of thousands displaced. A senator from the south moved the motion that led us to Maiduguri, and one of the many times we showed the world that senators act as Nigerians first, not as southerners or northerners. The 3 senators representing Borno State were among the delegation, and we called on the Shehu of Borno to assure him that rebuilding the Northeast was high on our agenda. We visited IDP camps, spoke with the people, carried the babies, comforted them, letting them know that their well-being was a priority of the Senate. Today, the Northeast Development Commission is a reality and the people have been resettled. There was a very moving encounter with Ali Hamadu, the 6-year-old Boko Haram victim from Chibok. Our joy knew no bounds when he returned walking and smiling after life-transforming surgery in Dubai. Litu Ali from Chibok was one of the many individuals whose lives were directly touched by the 8th Senate. We stood with families and communities across this country in times of trouble. I remember the case of Linda Igweto, the NYSC Corps member killed by SARS operative here in Abuja. On behalf of the Senate, I placed a call to our sister to offer our condolences and to speak to the need for justice in the matter. When Miss Hilda Eva Amadi tragically died at the NYSC orientation camp in Ilorin, Kwara State, we as Senate were there to condole those grieving their loss. We made donations towards the renovation of facilities at the camp and medical supply. Every single Nigerian life matters, and we demonstrated that in symbolism and actuality of our actions at all times. Many Nigerians cried out for help. We did not turn deaf ears. You all remember, my distinguished colleagues, the case of Ms. Monica Osage, who accused her lecturer of demanding sex for marks. As a responsible Senate, we backed up the sexual harassment law we had enacted by passing a resolution issue and conducted an investigation in the allegation. Responding to the needs of Nigerians was one of our calling, and by so doing, I believe we made a real difference in people's lives. When there was contention or strife, we were agents of peace and helped to find a way, drawing meetings with the Minister of Health, Minister of Labour, together with leaders of the joint health sector unions, we were able to bring an end to the biting 6-week-long JOC strike, which had tripled the health sector in the country. We said we will help end the deadlock, and we kept the promise. A Senate resolution was the critical factor in ending the 2-year impasse at Ladoke Akintola University of Technology in Ogbomoso, which had kept 34,000 strong student body in limbo due to the closure of the institution. But the students were able to resume their education in September 2017 following our resolution, which was another promise that we kept. We promised transparency in the National Assembly budget and kept our words, subjecting National Assembly budget to public scrutiny. The first time since Nigeria returned to democracy. We engaged with a delegation of nurses and midwives, led by my wife in her capacity as a global goodwill ambassador to International Confederation of Midwives, and listened to their concerns about high infant and maternal mortality rates in Nigeria. We promised to review relevant laws and pass new ones to make for better condition of service for nurses and midwives as one way of bringing about an improvement in mortality rates, in particular the health sector as a whole. We kept that promise too. And one notable outcome was the setting aside of the 1% of Consolidated Revenue Fund, CRF, for basic healthcare provision fund. This gave a massive boost to health funding in the country, allowing access to basic healthcare for thousands more Nigerians. Just the other week, the Minister of Finance called the 1% CRF that this National Assembly passed a game changer. No doubt, by our activity in this chamber, we are touching the lives of Nigerians, even those unborn. Speaking of commendations, our intervention on health also won plaudits from international philanthropists, Bill Gates, Bono, the Director General of the World Health Organization. Similarly, our amendment of the Universal Basic Education Act, guaranteeing free education for children aged 9 to 12, won praise from education rights activists and Nobel laureate Mala Yousafzai. Still on promises kept, we made at the Made in Aba Trade Fair in Abuja 2016, and that was a springboard for the legislation on Public Procurement Act in fulfilling our vow to manufacturers at the fair. We maintained the focus with our Made in Nigeria initiative. We saw the Nigerian Army ordering 50,000 pairs of boots from Aba manufacturers that same year. We've talked a lot about the number of bills, but it's just not the number of bills. We're able to crack the code of several bills that had been eluded Senates before us. We broke the decade-old petroleum industry bill into a quartet of workable bills, including the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, whose passage stands as a major achievement of the 8th Senate. The Companies and Allied Matters Act, KAMA, was the most comprehensive reform law governing Nigeria business environment in nearly 30 years. We cracked that as well. The Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit Bill was one of the major anti-corruption laws we passed and saved the country from being expelled from the global body of Egmont Group. And as recently as May 2022, we passed the Nigerian Football Federation Bill, which again had been caught in legislative bottleneck for 15 years. In these 4 years, we are fully engaged on the state of insecurity in the country and spearheaded many initiatives to bring sustainable peace and secure and protect the lives and properties of citizens. The 8th Senate organized a National Security Summit which made recommendations for bringing an end to problems. Moreover, the Senate engaged with security chiefs to provide broader understanding of the issues and urged them to make presentation to us on their requirements. We constantly engage with the international community on the need for them not to only support the war against insurgency, but also lift the ban on sale of arms to Nigeria. I'm happy to report you can recollect the Senate had to cut short our vacation in order to receive a U.S. congressional delegation and persuade them on the need to canvass for the lifting of arms sales ban for more effective counter-insurgency strategies. It was this meeting that we held that the national U.S. delegation went back to the Senate and lifted the embargo on sale of arms to Nigeria. At every turn, the Senate utilized every opportunities of courtesy call and foreign visit to rally support for the fight against Boko Haram. The Senate that passed the landmark Not Too Young rule to run law to bring more young Nigerians into governance framework was also a great supporter and enabler of youthful aspiration and innovation. We met with members of Not Too Young to Run movement and promised to do our bit to help realize their dreams of assuming the mantle as leaders. The resultant law opened the pathways for inclusion of fresh young faces in 2019 election, a victory for participatory politics and democracy. The 8th Senate has been there for Nigerians of every social class and every field of endeavor. It gives me a sense of fulfillment to know that we did something worthwhile in this venerated space. My advice to whoever succeeds me is therefore along the same vein, for us to be there for the people. Act in the interest of the average Nigerian. Keep the legislature always at the behest of citizens. Let it be a people's parliament. Whoever succeeds in that person will still be a product of this 8th Senate. We did it together and let there be continuity. As we see all the things we have done, we must also be reflective and candid enough to acknowledge the things we didn't do. It is important that I make some comments about the legislative and executive relationship. It is my hope that in the 9th Senate, that the executive and the legislature will continue to work and develop even a better relationship. My advice is for the executive to see that National Assembly work on budget is not an interference, but is in line with the provision of the Constitution. That the presidency and National Assembly leadership should continue to consult much before even submission of budget to legislature. And that it encourages to also see that failure to appoint or confirmation of few appointment is not a source of disagreement. That then relationship will not improve. The executive must see that the legislator is not a rubber stamp without the right to question his actions. It is a subversion of principles of separation of powers and checks of powers. My advice for both arms of government have a role to play in our quest for good governance, and their leadership should work for cooperation and for fruitful engagement. If we go by our records in the 8th Senate, in the areas of confirmation, all confirmations that had to do with judiciary, we had 100%. Confirmations to do with ministers had 100%. Confirmations to do with ambassadors also had 100%. I think, and others had over 90%. I think this shows the level of cooperation that we did provide to the executive during this period of time. But it's important that what is key is that we must strengthen our democratic institutions. And it is that role that all of us here and in the next assembly must play a role in. It is my hope that the 9th Senate will improve on our performance and deliver on those areas that we're not able to touch. At this junction, let me express my gratitude to the Deputy President of the Senate, Ike Kirimadu. History will be kind to you and providence will shine upon you. I am sure you never thought you'd be Deputy Senate President in an APC majority parliament, but it happened. Nobody made you Deputy President of the Senate. The Almighty willed it to you. You have been a source of support, and I thank you immensely. You have become a brother and a friend. I thank you immensely. I want to thank the Majority Leader, Ahmed Lawan. The ayes have it. The Senate of the 8th Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria hereby stand adjourned. Senate.